Hi and welcome to School Shorts. I'm Melissa Chan-Green, journalist and mum of two, just trying to help my kids get the best out of school. And in this episode, we're kind of heading to the school tuck shop. We're talking about health and nutrition anyway. And the reason that it came about is actually I'd been seeing these articles about slushies, you know, the frozen drinks with a bit of flavour in them. And the articles were saying that children under 8 shouldn't drink them because they can cause some kind of glycerol intoxication and shock, which seemed kind of alarming. So off I went to Grant Schofield. He used to be the government's advisor in health and nutrition, and he's now a professor at Auckland University of Technology, to get to the bottom of the truth about slushies and also some other lunchbox facts. So Grant, let's talk slushies. Slushies has had a bit of a bad rap in the news recently for young children. What do you make of that?
There's this idea that slushies have got sugar alcohol in them, which sort of at both parts of that word sound bad for little kids, right? Sugar and alcohol. But it's really a little bit of a sweetener, but it also stabilizes these at a temperature that they can stay slushy rather than freezing up solid or getting too liquidy. So it makes a slushy a slushy. It's not a slushy without that.
And there'd been reports that some children had been so sick from whatever this sugar alcohol is that they've actually had to go to the doctor or be treated. Does that surprise you?
Oh, I mean, it's possible. I think you're going to have to eat or drink whatever you do with slushies, several of them, and
Right.
often. So I think if you're having a slushie on, as a every now and then food for any age, I'm not particularly worried about it. In saying that, I'm definitely worried about what our kids are eating. Because that's my thing, right, is to follow that. But yeah, I don't think slushies are just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, so you're saying that slushies are actually had a bit of a bad rap, and it's not necessarily the case that they're going to send you to hospital, but they're perhaps not good to have as a drink anyway.
Yeah, I think the thing is, well, first of all, it's a sort of thing called nutritionism, right? Focusing down on single nutrients in one particular food. Oh, it's going to get you. And I mean, that's fair enough in some cases. Obviously, you don't want to eat mercury or something or other poisons. They're going to kill you on the spot. That would be bad. But I don't think slushies fall into that category. I reckon that you zoom out to the bigger picture. And I'm definitely worried about that for our kids. And so the category of foods we might think about are sort of 3 categories. So one's whole foods, things that were growing, swimming, running, flying in nature recently, and you can clearly identify that they were, like you're eating a chicken or an apple. So that's whole food. And so, that's what humans have eaten the entire time they've been on the planet, and that's what we're matched to eat. That's our evolutionary legacy. And then we got better at preserving some foods. That's processed foods like cheese and fermented things and homemade things that existed before industrial food manufacture. And then you've got this whole category called ultra-processed foods, which comes in a bag. You need a label to identify it. It's clearly not recently related to anything living. Doritos, good example. Like, they apparently come from corn, but it's hard to identify the corn. The ultra-processed food now, of course, is the bulk of what we eat. And as a parent, you might be good at this. I don't know if I've done it occasionally. Like, you're wandering around the supermarket and you sidle up alongside someone and you gently look down in their trolley.
Are you doing some supermarket judging, are you, Grant?
No, I'm not judging. I'm just, collecting data. But you can, do that properly as well. And between 60 and 70% of what goes into people's trolleys is ultra-processed food, which is presumably what they eat as well. And the thing about that category is, especially for kids, we know if you're eating predominantly out of that category, then all of the things around human flourishing sort of dwindle. And so you're more prone to not learning as well. You're more prone not to growing and developing as well. And then as you get older and older, you're more prone to the diseases of modern society. And I think the one thing as parents that we want to do is provide our kids with the best chance of thriving. And sometimes I think we grossly underestimate food. Now, the thing is, as a parent, like, we've all been there, right? You're making school lunches,
Yeah, I mean, that's the issue, right?
Yeah.
You think, I need to put something in that's quick. I'm busy.
Yeah.
But the other thing is I need to put something in that they're going to eat.
So I think there's at least three factors, right? They're actually going to eat it. You can make it easily, and you're going to be able to afford it and keep it in your somewhere. And it's going to save you from the long preparation. Like, no one's waking up in the morning or the night before going, oh, this will be cool. I can't wait to start my school lunches. It's not even, well, maybe you do that.
No, absolutely not. There's a kind of battle in the morning as to who has to do it. I think who has to make the lunchbox.
Yeah. And so we've studied that, right? Like, so we've gone around, and it's not really the food police, but we've got kids to put the contents of their lunch out, and we've taken a photo of it. And
it sounds like the food police to me.
No, we didn't judge them. But then the beauty of AI is it can do image recognition and do a really, really good job of classifying it. And I've introduced an idea of scoring it called the human interference scoring system. Yeah, and so how much green do you get? Food that was clearly recently alive somewhere. And yeah, I mean, it's surprising, and it doesn't. What's surprising how much of a better job we could do.
So out of 10 then, what score would you give overall for kids' lunchboxes?
About a 3 out of 10. I mean, most of them have a piece of fruit. It's usually an apple or an orange or a banana.
So that's a point.
It's a point. And sometimes they'll have water, but quite often and sometimes they'll have milk. So those are cool. So that's okay. But a lot of people will have packaged junk food, really, masquerading as health food. So, Nature's Fresh muesli bar, it's got pictures of trees and cows on it, but there's no actual whole food.
Well, this is the problem, right? The packaging. Not only is there the issue of the marketing on there, and it might say real and natural, and so you kind of get lured into that.
Yeah.
But what do you think about the actual labelling on this food, and whether it's giving us an appropriate or a full picture of what's actually inside?
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge issue. It's misinformation. And I mean, the reality is that some onto-it countries, like Brazil, has a set of nutrition guidelines, especially for kids, where it's not so much about all the individual nutritionism and nutrients, where they go actually like eat with other people, home prepare the food. And interesting, the very last point on their nutrition guidelines for kids is don't trust food companies, they're going to trick you, or similar words to that in a different language. But yeah, that's a huge thing. I mean, we're not relying on corporates to do the right thing. I mean, Up and Go is a classic example of this, right? It gets a 4.5 or a 5-star rating depending. It's got the same amount of sugar in it as by volume as Coca-Cola. It's just fortified with nutrients. And you'll see the same with cereals with the star rating, which is a scam. That Nutrigrain, which is 33% sugar, the rest ultra-processed carbohydrates, gets 4 stars. And then something like whole milk gets 3.5 stars, and something like butter, which is a whole food, more or less, gets 0.5 star. So the whole system, which was a voluntary accord by the food industry to self-regulate, and then endorsed by Ministry of Primary Industries, is a scam.
What do you think then is something that parents are perhaps getting wrong or have the wrong idea about that you think is something that needs to be put right, or a mistruth that perhaps parents would benefit from knowing about?
I don't think you have to start the day with cereals for energy. I mean, I know they're convenient and easy, but I don't think it's a great start. Your blood sugar goes way up. You get reactive hypoglycemia, late term, the sugar crash. Every kid gets it. So, by morning tea, you're like, and you're in that cycle throughout the day.
Is this having an impact on our childhood obesity rates?
Sure, that's one aspect, but more, it's just learning, because at school you go to school with high blood sugar, and then it slumps, and because insulin overproduces for glucose, then your blood sugar's way low. To start the day, you're going to have to get some protein and a bit of fat in. That's eggs of any kind. Even if you're having oats and whatnot, add as much yogurt or some cream, all of that type of stuff as much as you can. Even some protein powder, although now I'm endorsing ultra-processed food, to start the day with, and it applies for parents as well, to start the day with a decent meal that stabilises your blood sugar is, I think, half of us are getting that wrong, and then you're on a roller coaster the whole day.
This is actually a debate that we have within our own household around oats, because I can't seem to find experts to agree on this, because I see some who say it's a really good breakfast because it keeps you full for longer, and then others who say it's essentially like cereals and you're still going to have that spike. So what is your take on
Well, I think if you're just eating the oats by themselves and adding some sugar, or honey or something, then you're probably right about the cereal side. But if you have them with other stuff added, then I don't think it's a bad breakfast. Like if you're an overweight adult and you're trying to lose weight, I don't think it's a great start. I'd rather you had eggs. But if you're a kid ready to go for the day, go for it.
Okay, so best breakfast in the morning is some protein, so potentially eggs in the morning.
I love eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What dietary trends are we seeing in young people? Because you talk about ultra processed food, but I mean, I remember when I was growing up, I think my lunchbox, sorry mum, but was full with packets of stuff, because that was kind of all out. It was the craze at the time. It was all this new stuff, roll-ups and all of that. Are we actually moving away from that, or have we actually
I don't think we've particularly changed. I don't think people put candy bars in as such. Like the roll-ups are a classic, right? That was the sort of ultimate bitter end of the low-fat revolution. May contain fruit. Didn't actually contain fruit.
May contain fruit was the key words there.
Yeah, and I think we've moved away from that, but that's a good thing. But yeah, I think if you looked at New Zealand children's lunch boxes across the day, it's a matter of getting that ultra-processed stuff out, and it's hard.
You work with health from a wider perspective than just nutrition. What would you say among the research and among the work that you do is up there as the biggest risk or the biggest detriment to our young people's health?
Yeah, the backstory around what I think is the biggest problem for our young people's health is around screens and screen time and how much that world's changed. But I want to give you a couple of statistics to think about, because I think these are not talked about at all, and these are the most important things, one of the most important things happening in New Zealand right now. And so we started measuring psychological distress in young people. By young people, I mean 16 to 24-year-olds. We don't go earlier than that for that sort of thing. It's a national health survey. It's measured really well. It's been ongoing. So in 2006, when we first started measuring that, the number of 16 to 24-year-olds who were suffering severe psychological distress at that moment was 5%. And it was similar to other developed countries. Now, the nuance in that is that girls are almost always 50% higher than boys. So girls were at 6%, boys were at 4%. And bear that in mind, that's never really discussed. And that tootled along until about 2012, same as every other developed country. And then something happened around there, and it started to tilt sharply upwards for both boys and girls. And by 2021, actually 2023, the data have just come out. So girls are now at 33% and boys at 20%, with an average of about 26%.
But hang on, that's saying severe mental trauma.
Severe psychological distress has gone
30,
up fivefold.
How much was it for girls? 30?
It's 33%.
33%, a third of our young women that were surveyed for that.
Yeah, and that's robust. That's the same as in other countries with the similar demographics, and it's still heading up. And we don't.
Shocking.
Well, we're the adults, we're the parents here, and I've got kids in the age group, and I mean, it breaks my heart that, I mean, when have we heard about young women's mental health talked about at all? And then we're not getting to the reason about why that is, and the best we can manage. And hats off to Mike King and John Coonan for what they've done in mental health, because JK removes stigma, and Mike King has brought this up as a potent public issue with advocacy. But more counselling isn't the solution, because it isn't the cause. So the question is, what is the cause of the psychological distress? And I think the best evidence at the moment is it's excessive screen times, especially social media, is a primary cause of that. And then also at the same time, a lack of getting outside and being active, it's displaced it. And the junk food, so we first of all create a situation that we're not meant to be in, which is looking at these damn screens, interacting in ways that isn't how humans work. And then the second thing is we're less robust versions of ourselves because we don't move and eat the nutrients that we're used to. We don't suffer as much stress in the way that we used to, which is a great irony, right?
So we're kind of, I guess, dopamine searching through screens and food.
Well, so
instead of movement.
So you got to right to the mechanism, right? So this dopamine, which is about motivation and feeling good, it drives you towards something. You briefly feel good, and then it goes away quickly. When it's super high, and screens and social media make this super high, so does gaming, by the way, probably even more so. Then, and so does junk food. Then the system adapts, and it adapts in such a perverse way. So now you need more of the same thing to get the same amount of pleasure, tolerance. And when you're not having it, you want more of it, withdrawal. And so the thing that gave you pleasure has actually now created pain, and you never get pleasure out of it. You only return to normal by excessive use of the device. And it's just completely, it promised fun and delivered pain.
I think the problem is, though, for parents is we know our children should be moving. They shouldn't be on devices. They should be eating good food. So what is your advice today in terms of helping our children to do that when we know that's the case, but society kind of seems to be set up against that at the moment?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be clear, like I'll pull one out now, the phone here, I mean, it's like a magical device, right? Like all of humanity's knowledge is instantly accessible. I can communicate with my friends and family all around the world instantly. So I can track where my kids are, which I do, and that's cool.
Oh, tell me about that.
Yeah, you know, they just find my phone. You can just like keep an eye on it, as long as they don't block you. But
I mean, is that an issue in itself? Because don't we want children to feel independence? You know, that's my mum never tracked well. In the end, she found out where I was kind of heading off to parties I guess I shouldn't have been at. But isn't that part of growing up?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a whole separate issue which I want to talk about as well.
Okay.
Because that's another whole cool thing that you're getting to.
Yeah.
But just back to the phone and screen thing. I mean, they're part of our lives. To think we're going to get rid of them and not have them use them is naive. I mean, we do know a couple of things, and you know, kudos to us getting them out of schools for what it's worth. Although my son actually got a detention for ringing his grandmother during home economics the other day, because they had to make it. No, it was sort of cool, but it's fair enough. He got pinged. He rang her to say how cool her traditional recipe worked out, which was so cute. But then he got a detention for using his phone.
I thought it might have been, you know, Nana, I don't have any baking soda. What can I use? Because Nanas always know.
Oh yeah, that's true. They always know that as well. I'm not sure he's that advanced in cooking, to be honest. But the data that originally came out of Norway, where they've been doing this for longer, you had an immediate reduction in acute psychiatric care for a young woman, just from the school thing. It's not solving the whole problem, but at least helped. What I would say to parents with your youngsters is that you're not going to get them completely off these things, but that hour and a half before bed is crucial.
Right.
I think it's not, the phone shouldn't be in the bedroom. You're the parent. This is a thing because it will affect the quality and quantity of sleep. So, you know, actually you can do it as a parent as well. Get your phone out of your bedroom as well. Don't be a hypocrite. Get those phones into the lounge charging or whatever they can do. And they just profoundly affect quality and quantity of sleep in that hour and a half for that age group and for us as well. I mean, I think that's, if you're going to pick one thing, it's that little golden hour there.
Okay, we have a little bit of time left for you to say what you were going to say in response to, you know, should we be making sure that we're letting our children free roam, have a bit more independence.
Yeah, I've been studying this for my whole career, is the idea of free-range kids, and our own work shows you how, in a sort of David Attenborough ecological range. You remember those TV shows with, how far the animals would roam, and, as a matter of course. Well, that's decreased massively in the last 50 years. You go back to, we interviewed grandparents, parents, and kids living in the same neighbourhood, and how much they moved around independently on their own at age 10. It went from 7 or 8 Ks for the 50 years ago to a couple of Ks to a few hundred metres now. So, unsupervised roaming has decreased, and the sort of idea of risk and adventure on your own terms as a developing young person. I think it's a critical aspect. That's where your frontal lobe develops. That's where you learn to, understand ambiguity, how to interact with, sometimes hostile situations. People get so worried about, the stranger danger and these things, and they're not particularly factors. And the idea of walking to school as a kid on your own. I know most parents get worried about that, but if you're in the geography to do that, or you can drop them off a bit further away or something, then that's great. And actually, it's interesting. It's not completely dead, right? So if you look at our work with New Zealand kids, then about a third of kids spend, say, on a weekend, don't move out of their house really at all. A third go out and do some sport, so they're briefly active. But there's still a third in New Zealand that are mostly in regional New Zealand, where they're involved in free-range childhoods. So, I'm pretty sure I know where I want my kids to be, which is in that third.
Yeah. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of people listening who will have grown up in a rural area or with that kind of free range and feel that it was really beneficial to them. So, it's definitely worth thinking about too in the whole health picture, isn't it?
Well, it's not much of a battle. Like, provided you live in an area that's even physically feasible, it's not very hard. You go out on the back deck, you pour yourself a drink or a non-alcoholic one nowadays, and you sit around and have a chat, and your kids are elsewhere, and then they come home.
That is something I'm going to have to get used to, I think. But it's definitely worth thinking about. Grant Schofield, thank you so much for joining me. Really good to chat today.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. If that topic was helpful for you and you'd like to hear more, please do like and subscribe. It sends me that feedback. School Shorts is all about supporting busy parents who want their children to thrive. Follow on social at School Shorts NZ for fun ideas, helpful resources, and exclusive giveaways.